Let us just revise what we studied in last two classes. Um, we studied about data types, and then we also looked at how to write if else conditions and for loop. And before that, just to revise, Python is an interpreter, and it is on top of operating system. It's a separate interpreter. And then important parts to remember here is the reason that we use data types is to know the size of that variable before in hand, okay, to calculate. And then important data types are strings list, tuple set, and dictionaries. Okay, so these are the keywords, else if statements. And yesterday we looked at how to count the coins using loops, and to do this you also need a if else loop. I think some of you have done it, so both of them will be covered, and there are additional assignments in Google Classroom. You can refer that. Okay, so let us start with today's session. Today's session is about functions and scope of variables. So the reason that we need to learn about functions is because first thing is we can reuse the code that we have written, and then we can fix things at one place if there is a bug in the code, and then we also can write common code into a function, and then we can put it into a common folder which will be called as library, and then we can use it without even knowing the logic inside that function. So and then also it becomes very easy to maintain the code. So these are the uses that the reason that we need to write function. And then we will write the function for yesterday's exercise, and then we'll try to understand and realize how good is the function. All right. So before going into interpreter and doing hands-on, so I just wanted to show you. I think most of you know what is a function and things like that. So let us just revisit that. So functions typically will start from I need to tell the interpreter that this definition, this name or the variable that I'm going to declare is of type function. So that is told to interpreter by the keyword called as def. Let me get into drawing mode. So that is called as def. That means def is nothing but it's a short form of definition. So in C, C++, you can simply write int, and then you write a function and with the braces and things like that. So this def is nothing but the keyword that is used to define the function. Okay, keyword. In C++, it will be something like if it doesn't return anything, void some function, and then you have braces and some arguments, and then your code, and then the return value. So similarly, in Python, we do not specifically tell what is the return type here. So we just tell that this is a function, because return type can be anything, because variables, yesterday we saw that the variables are dynamically typed. That means you don't need to know the type of the variable at any given point of time. Okay, so you can simply count is equal to zeros. Here I'm assigning an integer. I can even assign some string xyz, something like this. So since it is dynamically typed, that is the reason we do not have to write the function. We don't have to include the return value here. So in order to do that, we use a def, and this is the argument list. So here you can take any input arguments. That means for example, here I am taking a list of numbers, and then I'm using that list of numbers and doing some calculations. Don't worry about this. So and the string that you are seeing here, let me change the color because it causes confusion. So this part is is called as docstring. Docstring is it is called as docstring because when you write a function, it is like you have to think there are other programmers who are using your function, so they need to know what this function does. So it is not mandatory to write this docstring. It is just for indication that okay, this function does this. It takes this kind of input parameters and output is this. So that is the use of docstring. It is not mandatory. It is just for readability and understanding purpose. And this is your block. Yesterday we saw that anything that any line that's ends with colon, it tells the interpreter that there is a block below. So that is why you need to have consistent spaces or 3 spaces or 4 spaces or a tab, just to tell that this belongs to the function block. And inside that function block you can simply write any code that is the core logic, and after doing that you need to return something. So this is also not mandatory. If you do not return anything, Python by default returns none. So this is equivalent to null in C and C++. None is actually an object which points to object called as none. It doesn't does nothing. So by default it returns none. So these are the basic construct of a function. So it can take any number of arguments here. I'm just passing one argument here. So that is the basic structure of the function. So we will just jump to writing code. We'll not spend much time here. So you just remember that you can take number of parameters, and this is the keyword, and you can return anything if you want to return, or else you can simply escape this step and if you don't have to return anything. All right. So let me just get into code mode. Okay. Yesterday we saw that we wrote some code to just to sum up the coins that we did that exercise. All right. So this, imagine that you are a class of say 60 students, and then each one of you have says piggy banks, and these piggy banks, once you break that piggy bank, the process is same thing. That means you also will count the coins, keeping it in a line, and then your friends also will do the same thing. Say for example, your class teacher asks everyone to break your piggy banks in the end of the year, and she wants to know what is the how much people have or students have saved from their pocket money. So then you need to write code for that. So she asks, okay, write code to calculate the sum of piggy banks. So each one of you, that means all the classes will start writing this code. So then they will show this code and they will calculate the sum of amount. So what happens is, say for example, if there is that means if there are 60 students, so there are 60 different codes like this, and say class teacher takes all of this and puts into a folder, and then if there is a bug in the code, in say out of 60 people, if there are if 40 people have done it a summation as a wrong summation, say 40 people have done wrong summation, then the duplication of there is duplication of code here, and there are 40 bugs, 40 places to change the code. So in order to avoid that, what you can do is class teacher can simply write a function, put this whole logic inside a function like this. I'll just try to put this in a function. So function is defined like this: count coins. You can name anything. So here I'm not taking any parameters as of now. So there are about 10 lines, and let me just move it. Okay, print sum. In fact, I'll just return sum. In order to invoke this interpreter, once it sees function, it won't automatically call this. In order to invoke this, what you need to do is you need to call that function like this, and since it doesn't take any parameters, now I can call it like this, invoke it like this. Okay, so let me try to execute that. Okay, now this function is called and we get the same output. Now for example, now this is class teacher's code. That means she has written the code already. We saw a problem where 40 people had buggy code, so teacher was very upset, and now it's difficult for her to fix all the bugs. So what she does is she writes this code and asks class students to make use of this function. How students can make use of this function is by just simply calling it. Let me say I am one of the students, so I'll just write my own file here, and then what I'll do is, this is my class teacher's file. So this is a part of library. So what I'll do is I'll simply go here and say import. So that function, that file name is dis underscore me, so don't worry about the file, that's not right file name. And then I will say import this one. Okay, and then I'll simply call dot count coins. So now I come here and now my file is mycoins.py. I can simply, without even writing the code for the whole logic to count the coins, I have simply used my class teacher's function. Let me just fix this. So once you import any module, importing is nothing but it's like for example, you have a book, and in book you can see that there is a glossary. For example, if you purchase any Python book, there could be references in the end of the page telling that okay, you can read about this in this book or in this reference. So that is nothing but a library for that book. That means you can refer that in future. So that is the simple way. That means you are reusing the book. So this is like a book, and you can refer that book here in any other book. So this is that is why it is called as libraries. So importing means I am simply calling that particular section of the book with a simple code. So this is about importing. So we will see that further when we do the importing class. There is a separate session for this. So now what is the problem that I have solved? Now teacher has only one file, and then every other like 60 people are simply using this and calculating it. So what are the advantages here? So we just looked at advantages. So reuse of code, that means I am not rewriting the whole logic. I don't have to even worry about the logic. And then debugging and fixing at one place. Say for example, there was a bug in a teacher's code. So now she doesn't need to fix in all the 60 places or all the 40 places wherever the bug is. So she can fix at one place. That means maybe one of the coins was not counted. So she can fix that bug, and again it simply will start working, and it's very easy to make the changes. So maintainability of the code, yes, because only one person is maintaining it, and there is no extra cost to maintain. So in order to tell what this function does, teacher would write a doc string. This is a doc string. So doc string means this function calculates sum of coins are in list. Okay, so how do I access this doc string from here? All right. So that is the question. So one thing is, let me get into interpreter mode. Let me try to import my teacher's code. This me. So yesterday we saw one of the inbuilt functions, that is dir. Dir tells me what are the inbuilt what are the functions and what are the attributes inside any given object. So everything is an object in Python. So in this particular object, so yesterday I was telling you that you don't have to worry about these functions which are starting and ending with double underscore. So now you can see that count coins is a function that was written by a teacher here. So that is also added inside this object. In order to access this particular doc string, what I can do is I can simply say this me is an object and dot count coins is an object. Inside that object, to access the doc string, this is how you access the doc string. Alright, so there are different other ways. Actually, these doc strings, once you put it into the functions, it helps us to do the documentation. There are tools where you can use those tools and generate automatic documentation for entire software. So that is one of the advantages of this using the doc string. So this is how you use the doc string. So maybe teacher fixes the bug and updates some version, something like, okay, 2.3 version, fixed bug in counting new coins, something like that. Okay, maybe there is a new coin which is released. Now I can now it is not refreshed. That is because I have imported it already into the RAM. So now we do not know. So I want to again do this same thing, import this and see. Now it is updated. Right. So this is how this is the use of doc string.
Sir,
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, will the doc string start with hashtag?
No. Okay, that's a good question. So this won't be part of compilation. So this is not a comment actually. So some people use it for comments, but in Python there are this is a comment. That means whatever is starting with hash, it's a comment. But some people use this as a comment, but it's not a comment technically because it doesn't get into the compilation. So this is the comment. There is no multi-line comment. For example, in C++, you can write multi-line comment, something like this, comments here. Okay, but in Python there is no multi-line comment. There is only hash, like this. So in order to simulate multi-line comment, some people use this particular way to write multi-line comment, but this is not technically a comment. Does that answer your question?
Sir, then,
Yeah.
what is that called as then? The line which is starting with hashtag, no, sir. What is that called as?
This one, comment. It's just a comment. It's called as comment.
Okay. Sir, is there any difference between comment and the doc string
Yes.
function in function?
Yes. Comments will be removed during the compilation time. You won't see the comments. That is when we import something. What happens is you can see that there is PYC file generated. All right. So this file is
Yeah.
nothing but we saw this process, right? So we saw one of the processes of compilation. You can see that the code is compiled into PYC file, and then
Yeah.
and it is translated to machine code. Okay, so this is actually the byte code. This is not a machine code. This is a byte code. It is telling that, okay, I cannot open this file. In fact, you can open this file. Let us try to open this file. Okay, this cannot be opened normally, but I am trying to force open this. you can see that this is not, you cannot read this, right? There are
Yeah.
some things which can be read. For example, this is function calculate sum of, this is actually a direct string, so that is why it is present here, and some other metadata. But usually this entire the code is not present here, so it is in a jumbled format or some other format, so which cannot be read by humans. So that is why this is looking like this. So you cannot read this. Only interpreter can interpret this. That means, in fact, you can actually disassemble this and see what is the bytecode. So that we will see in a moment how we can disassemble this. Okay. So this you cannot read. So the difference, coming back to your question, the difference between this comment and this one is this will be part of your PYC file, that is bytecode. This will be part of bytecode because that's a part of doc string. Okay, that's a part of object. So that particular this will present, but it will rip off all the comments. See, I'm not able to see all this because it's not needed, and the interpreter will simply remove all these comments because it's not even needed for any purpose.
Okay, sir. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So that is about it. So going further one step with this question. So this is the bytecode. This we cannot read, but as we saw, this is the process. That means Python code it gets compiled and bytecode is generated. That is what we try to look at it, and then that interpreter will take and translate it to machine code. So let us try to in the compilation process. Actually, it first writes the assembly code. That means it looks something like this. So in fact, we can reverse this. That means I have a bytecode and I can simply reverse this. Let me try to show you that. It's a nice thing. And how it looks. Input. There is one library called as dis. So it does the disassembling. That means it converts the bytecode back to assembly code, and we will look at how it looks. So it will be interesting. So disassemble. There's a function name. Function name is count coins. Count coins. I will try to print this. Let me just get out of this interpreter mode. Python. This. Okay, great. So now what is happening is we were trying to calculate the sum, right? What I have done is I'm telling that once you generate the bytecode or before even generating the bytecode, just take this function. This is human readable Python code. I want to see the intermediate step that is happening here. So we saw that finally everything goes as a machine code. That interpreter will do one step before. It looks like assembly code, but it is not assembly code of the machine. It is assembly code of the interpreter. So that is one of the process internally. So I just wanted to show you that how it looks. So this, you might have seen this kind of code in your engineering or anywhere. So this looks like assembly code, right? So these are simply few instructions. That means load constant means it is taking. You can debug this. Actually, you can look at this, and there are no. This is not very much like Python. This looks like a assembly code. So this assembly code is what gets converted to this particular bytecode. So bytecode is not readable, but you can disassemble that and you can see what are the instructions. So these instructions internally will get translated back into the machine code. So these instructions goes as bytecode, and bytecode gets translated to machine code. So this is how it looks, right? So that's a good question. Let's explore it.
Sir, actually, I had one more query, sir.
Uh-huh.
Sir, this function,
Right.
had you written or it was pre-installed in Python?
Which one? This one or this one? This
Yeah,
is this
this
is pre-installed.
function.
This is
Yeah,
pre-installed.
yeah.
This is pre-installed. No, this is already there.
Okay. Okay, okay, got it.
Okay, so that is about the functions and bytecodes. Okay, so now you understood the reason that why we write functions, right? So the
Yeah,
reason
sir.
we write it in order to stop duplication of code, and it's manageable, and fixing bugs is easy. So that is the main thing. So in fact, you can take this coins outside, and you can in fact pass coins here. So you can pass it as arguments, and you can pass any number of arguments, coins, and then x, y, z, whatever you want. So that depends on what you're trying to do. So that is about a little bit about functions. So after looking at this, there is one more important concept that is related to how the Python finds out the variables. Okay, this one. So scope of variables. So this is an important concept. That is because I'll show you. I just wrote some code before here. So I have a variable called as my variable, which is seen in multiple places. I'll just get it drawing mode and just mark the blocks, various blocks. Okay. So the bigger block, the block is this entire file. This is block number 1. The next block is this function, right? This is next block, this is second block. You can see that there are multiple blocks. Let me take yellow. So this block is another block, which is if block. And there is one more block inside that, which is for block. So there are 4 blocks here. 4 blocks of code. That means that you can see there are there are 4. Yesterday we discussed that anything that ends with colon, that tells the interpreter or the compiler that okay, there is a beginning block here. So the colon is here, colon is here. So in the global range, you don't need any colon. Okay. So there is a colon here. Okay. So there are 2 blocks inside the function. The function itself is a block, and that is block number 2, and the entire thing is 1 block. So you can see that the variable that we can see, this particular variable called as my variable here, is repeated at various places. This is 1 place, this is second place, so this is third place, and this is fourth place. At each block it is used. So how does a compiler know which one to take? Because all the names are same, so which one to take? So what it does is it looks in its local block, that is in this fourth block. So first block, it looks in this block, and then it looks in the bigger block, and then it looks in the bigger block. So the lookup is like this. Okay, so this seems like a easy concept, but when you start writing programs, you'll run into problems, because there will be global variables, there will be variables which are passed through the functions, and then there will be variables, local variables, which you have written in the for loop and if blocks. So this you need to understand. So for this we can imagine that, for example, if your mother asks you to find asks you to find mobile, say mobile is ringing and you don't know where it is ringing, it's in the vibrate mode, it's simply vibrating, and in order to find the mobile, what you do is first you look at the table, if it's where the mobile is usually kept, look at the table, it's not there, Now you look at the entire room. So you search in entire room, it's still not there, and then you run into the into the drawing room. So then you can find it somewhere there. So it's similar logic. So it looks at, this is like a small space, that is, which is like a table, and then you look at the entire room, and then you look inside the drawing room, and then you look inside, maybe outside the home, something like that. Okay. So that is how we humans search. Similarly, the compiler also designed in hierarchical fashion, and it searches in this space. So that is about a variable. So let us try to work out this code. Let me get out of this. Okay. So let me try to compile this. Try to compile this. Python scope of variables. Okay. So this function is not called yet. So that is why only this is printed. So this is a global, at the global scope. We saw that it's one of the blocks. It's outer block. Now let me call this function. So this function is what is the function name? Some function. Function name is some function. And it doesn't take any argument. I'll invoke that function. Let us see what happens. Okay. So now you can see that this particular variable is of value 20, and inside the block it got a new name, and then inside this it got a new value inside that, and inside this there are different variables. So how do we know that all of these are different objects? So there is a keyword called as id. Let me just print id. So this is a keyword. It's not a keyword, sorry. It's a inbuilt function which takes an object and returns the we studied that the objects will be stored in RAM, right? So in that RAM it will give the address of that RAM, but in interpreter zone, it has its own process space. So it will give that particular ID. It is not the actual address of the RAM, but it will be somehow mapped inside the interpreter. You don't have to worry about that, but imagine that this is like an address of the RAM. So that is just for our understanding. Okay. So let us look at this my variable. What are its IDs? That means what are its addresses? Because finally it must be stored somewhere in the RAM. So that is what we are doing. My variable. My variable. ID. And then finally my variable. Let me try to show you. Okay, now you can look at all of this. You can see that all the addresses are totally different. That means the my variable, the object is totally different. That means inside this block it's a different variable. Inside this block it's a different variable. Inside this block it's a different variable. So now let me try to remove this variable. That means I'll just commit it. That means it will be part of compilation. So I'll just remove that and run it once more. So it tells that my variable is referenced before assignment. That means you cannot access the global variable that is of the same name here. So in order to do that, in order to do that, what you need to do is you need to specifically tell that this is a global variable. That we will look in a moment, but let us try to work out through this function first. So I'll just comment this as well because we are accessing there, and then let me try to run it again. Now you can see that this variable was totally different, and we are not using it anywhere. So again, it searches for variable in this block. So I got this variable here, and I'm just simply assigning it. Okay, so that is how the resolution happens. If you want to tell that this is a global variable, you need to specifically tell this is global. Global. Right. Okay, not this. Now you can see that this variable, that is global variable, has some object ID, which is, we are printing it here. The same object ID is printed in function myblock variable. So here, so these two are of same object. So how did I access the global variable? Specifically, if I remove this, what happens is it will take as a new variable. But if I tell that use the global variable, I have to use a keyword called as global and make that visible in this context. So that is how the variables are accessed. So you can just imagine that example of searching so searching in different scopes. So you are finding mobile in on the table, and then on in the entire room, and then in the drawing room, and then in the outside the home maybe. So that is how the Python searches this one. So this helps in your debugging. So sometimes you might get errors like what we got, local variable assignment. Sometimes what usually people what they do is they will define a variable inside if block, and then they try to access it here. For example, I'll try to comment every other my variables, and we'll just take this my variable. I'll just mark it outside. Okay. So now let us look at the program. The reason we are getting is equal to 4 is because let me separate this so that it is readable, right? Outside the block, my variable. Okay. Let me just remove these two variables because they are specific to this block, and then axis. Okay. Here, where is this variable defined? My variable 4 outside.
Inside for loop, I guess one my variable is there, right?
Okay, yeah. Let me this assignment. Right. Okay. Yeah. So usually, I was trying to demonstrate one of the problems that usually people make. So you'll try to declare a variable inside for loop, and you will try to access it outside. So what happens is it will tell that okay, the local variable is referenced before assignment, so it doesn't know where to find this variable. Okay. So this kind of mistakes can be visible when you try to start a writing program. So that is about how to resolve the variables. So that is about
Hello, Digant.
yeah,
Digant, in that function, whatever you have written,
right.
why don't we get any error or something like reusing the variable or a name? So if, in the block of if we have a my variable, and in for loop also we have a my variable, right? So does Python doesn't give any error on that?
No, it doesn't give any error because it just looks up. It doesn't. It takes it as a new variable.
Okay, for example, if I want to get a my variable of block if inside the for loop, how we can do it?
That means
It cannot be a global.
yeah, we have to use global, and then use it here. So you want to use from if to inside this, right? So
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
yeah, you don't have to you don't have to define. So you can just you can use it here. So for example, I'll my variable, and I'll just comment this. So you can see that this variable is accessed inside the for loop.
Okay, got it, got it.
So what it does is it looks up in that particular block and looks in the if block, right? Okay. So that is about these two concepts, and there is one more related concept. So one is it's called as pass by reference and pass by value. So what happens when you pass a variable into a function?
Hello, Dika.
Huh?
Uh, for for global variable declarations, if you declare the variable before the main function, then it will be considered as a global variable declaration
Right,
in the
right,
other language.
right.
But what for the Python here?
Yeah,
If you
this is global variable. Yes.
the one which is before the function main
Right.
function, it will be okay.
Right, right.
But somewhere you kept the global sentence as well.
Yeah.
At that time, the color is changing like a inbuilt function, that global word.
Right. Okay. If you are simply using
Huh.
it, for example, if you are simply using it to print something, that means you are not trying to assign anything. You can simply use that. That means you don't have to tell that it's a global variable. It is automatic because you are simply using it, reading it. Okay.
Okay.
So
Suppose if you put the global in front of that.
that means you are specifically telling that. Okay. Global variable. So now it is pointing to this.
Okay.
So write a program and play around with that. So you'll try to get the complete picture. The basic idea is this one. It looks local and this it keeps on looking. So usually what you can do is to avoid this kind of confusion. What we usually do is write variables in a particular way. That means try to use different variables than the same variables. That is one of the best practices to avoid.
Okay. You mean rather than using global variable, better to define in the respective
Right,
functions with.
right. And sometimes what happens is, say you have some, you can also write a settings file, and then in that settings file, you can keep all the global variables in one place, and then simply access that settings file just by importing it. So that is one of the best practices.
Okay.
So
Thank
that is about these two. This one. So there is one more concept called as pass by reference and pass by value. Usually, this is coming from C++ ideology. That means whenever we try to pass a parameter into a function, usually by default in C and C++, it goes as a value. That means you don't. Let me just get in drawing mode. Okay, so you have a parameter already defined in a certain particular memory. So you have some function called as f, say, and then you send that parameter inside the function. Okay, so this is some int, some return something. Okay, so when you send this parameter, when you call this function, what happens is it C and C++ they create the copy of the parameter and then use it here. That means when you modify this parameter, this won't be reflected here. So you can modify this parameter. Say parameter is equal to some xyz. If this parameter is an object, you can do something like as parameter dot xyz, whatever it is. So the changes that you write inside this parameter object or variable is not reflected here. That is because we have a different copy. So this is called as pass by value. That means the entire value is copied, and then pass by reference is, instead of passing the entire value, what I can do is I can simply send the address of this. So that in C++ address is represented as like this. So if you want address of a certain parameter, you append a ampersand and send it as a parameter. Okay, so the advantage of this sending by reference is that you do not have multiple copies of object, and you don't have to worry about releasing the memory. So in case of crash, you don't have to worry about if there is any memory leak or something like that. So in Python, by default, everything is pass by reference. So we will just look at the demo and then we will understand. So in pass by reference, both of the parameters, that means variable names, will be pointing to same thing. So this blue color is a reference to by reference, and this orange and green color, this is pass by value. So let me just show it onto the on the code, so that is better. Let me open a new file so that, okay, some object, let me call it as my list is equal to some 345. Let me save this. This is a variable, and then I'll just something right like this. I'll pass this as a parameter, my list as a parameter, and then what I'll do is my list, and I'll access the first element, and I'll try to modify that element. The first element is 3. I'll try to modify it to 6, and then I'll just come out of here and I'll just print my list. I'll also print my list here in the global scope. Global. I'll just try to run this. Okay, I'm not calling the function. Send, it takes an argument, my list. Alright, so you can see that my list is a global list. That means it's just a global variable, and if I send inside a function, I can easily modify that that list. So I'm trying to modify the first element of this list. In fact, if you do this in C++, what you do is you get a separate copy. So this list will be different from the list that you send as an address. So that is like, now this parameter is nothing but my list. So this is passed by reference. That means you are sending the address. That is why you are changing directly in the address. So that is why we are seeing that even this is modified. By default, it is like that. In fact, if you need this to be a separate copy, what you can do is you can in fact send a separate copy. I think there is a copy function inside list. Let me try. Now you can see that this is not modified. That is because I am sending, instead of sending, this is just a parameter. So instead of I'll give a different name so that it's not confusing. Temp list. temp list. Okay. So this list is passed. It was passed without this copy. That means it was directly sent as a address. That means you are sending the memory location of that particular variable. In this case, in case I don't want to change the source variable, I can create a copy and simply do this. So in C++, it is equivalent to copy is equivalent to doing memcopy, or there are some other functions. So it's similar to memcopy. That means it's like creating a copy of an object. So that is what you did. So by default, the difference in the C++ and Python is that by default it is sent by reference. In fact, internal implementation of Python variables are totally different from C++, because these are internally called as, these are not even variables, these are just names which will be pointing to the object references. So that is a different concept. If you want to go deep, you can learn about that, but for our understanding purpose, just think that it is always by reference. But we saw that this is a mutable data type. That means I can modify this. So let us try to do immutable type and see the behavior. You will be surprised because it goes against our learning now. Tuple is a immutable object. What I'll do is I will send the tuple here. I'll just comment this. Instead of sending the list, what I'll do is I'll send the tuple. So now it says that this that is because we studied in yesterday's class that these are immutable types, tuples. So this is how, if this was in a function, say for example our class teacher had written a function here, so she wants some things to be not to be modified, because when you're using this in your function, you won't know whether it's a tuple or whatever. You will simply use it as a variable. So if you, even by accident, if you try to access that, or if you try to modify, then there will be conflict saying that okay, tuple doesn't do the assignment. That is because it is sending by reference. So that is the ideology of using tuples. So immutable types. At this point, imagine that this was in some other file. This is in a library file. So this is your simply a function. So if you get tuple, so it tells that okay, you cannot modify that. Okay. So that is how the that is the philosophy in Python, that do not create unnecessary objects unless you need it. So most of the times we don't need copies of objects. In fact, if you want to create copies of objects, you specifically do this using a certain function. Yeah, there are different functions. You can also write your own loop, something like for x in my list, and then you can create a new list here. New list is equal to empty list, and then you can new list dot append x. So this will also create a new list instead of this copy. So it is same as this one. So you create a list and then you can send it. So that is the main difference if you are coming from C++ background. So this is the main difference. By default in C++ it's passed by value. In that is the reason is because in C++ we do memory management. That means we do malloc and things like that, so calloc, malloc, and then we try to delete the memory in C++. That means we have complete control over the memory. So here, so far in programs that we have written, we never used any kind of allocating memory or deleting memory. In C++, this is a keyword called as new to create memory. In C we have malloc. So we never did anything like that in Python. That is because Python has a module called as garbage collector. This is an idea that is inspired by Java. So in Java you don't manually handle the memory. So there is a module called as garbage collector. What it does is it keeps it keeps refreshing the memory. It's process memory. It's virtual machine memory, looking for unused variables, and it simply deletes that. So you don't have to do it manually. So that is the reason that Python avoids sending by copy, because it's unnecessary, creates a lot of garbage, and garbage collector will have to it will be difficult for garbage collector to know collect all the unused parameters. So that is the reason. So this you need to keep in mind. All right. So that is about these three small concepts. You can write program and then realize these concepts. So going forward, what we'll do is we'll mostly spend time on coding. So now in the first class we did most of the theoretical class. We used code terminal less. In session 2 we used a little bit, maybe half of the class. Now you are seeing that we are going to use more of coding. So in future it will be less and less theory and more into the coding part. So try to do the exercises. If you do not do exercises, what happens is you won't get the context, because when we talk of variables, and if you are inheriting anything from importing from anything from another modules, so you won't have the context. So that is the reason that I suggest you to work on programs. It's like watching say YouTube classes, and if you don't do anything, then it's of waste, because it doesn't do any good for learning. So as and when you get time, please try to do these exercises, and it helps us to realize and understand things. So that is about this. So there is one assignment. So here this assignment is like this. So it uses all the concepts that we have learned so far. It uses function, it uses a for loop, it uses if else condition. So the exercise is like this. So it's a simple simulation. So for example, you imagine that in the toll gate, say for example in Nelamangala or Mysore toll gate, or any toll gate. So there are cars coming in, all the vehicles are coming in. So what happens is you want to make some decision at the government level that okay, as it was done in Delhi. So on this particular days, only odd numbers are odd number vehicles are allowed, and in these particular days, even number of vehicles are allowed. But to do that rule, so we need to collect the statistics first. So just to make sure that these even numbers and odd numbers are evenly distributed. So in order to do that, what government does is it puts a camera which reads the number in the on the cars or on the vehicles, and it just collects those integers as an integer. So forget that ka0 whatever it is. So just let us get the number for our simplicity purpose, and then that number will be stored in a list. So it is a sensor. It captures the photo, and then it tries to put that in a list. So imagine that as a software, so that you don't have to code, of course. So you get a list of numbers. So what you need to do is you need to write a program to count the number of odd and even numbered vehicles. Yesterday we did for coins. It's the same exact thing, but only thing is you need to write functions. The functions, how are you writing is, so now the use case is like this. So there are 3 levels of reporting. So now you have sensor data which is having odd numbers and even numbers in a big list. Maybe it has 1 lakh elements or whatever it is. So the first report, it is just for software. It is called as a sensor report. display the reports on traffic signals. There is also a chief minister's report that is called as a principal report, and then there is a district police commissioner report. So this is called as security report. So you need to write three functions. So sensor report, principal report, and security report, and print these values. That means you don't have to write logic in each of these functions. So you need to write a simple function which does which gives you even numbers and odd numbers. So the function will take in list and then it will return two values. So how to return two values from a function? Just learn it online. You can in fact return two values from function. In C++ you cannot return two values, but you can return a structure or an object. Similarly in Python, when you try to return two values, it comes as a tuple, and you can unpack the tuple. So just you can read about that. So return two integer values in one function, then that function is called in these three functions. So in total you will have four functions, and then you can write it in a single file for now, and then later we can keep that as a library, first function in a library, and then you can finish the program. So the advantage of these two exercises, the first one and second one, can be realized in third exercise. That means, for example, now there is a lot of registration happening in Bangalore or in Karnataka or overall India, right? So there is a lot of traffic flow, automatic traffic flow. That means maybe for every 6 months there is a 40% increase or some percentage increase. So I need to add 40% buffer to those numbers. So count the total number of vehicles. So if I get 100 here and 50 here, I need to add 40% buffer to these numbers, and then generate the report again. So this will help us help the people who build roads, such as highway authority and other people, to make a decision that okay, in this road this many vehicles are allowed, and this is the buffer. So if I have buffer, they can build bigger roads. So keeping that in mind, so when you do exercise number 3, you can see that you don't have to change any of these three functions. You can simply change it in library, that is in first function, and generate it. That means you have realized how to write code and how not to duplicate the code, and it is also easy to maintain. That means the exercise, third exercise is actually, it's like a new feature. New feature is added, maybe from the there is some input from road authorities and saying that add 40% buffer. So government takes that into account and then tries to modify the function. So and then it doesn't affect any of these reports. So reports will still use that function, and now you have realized that new feature is added without any hassles. So that is how you realize the power of function. So that is about today's class, and once you start using this, you will face these problems: scope of variables, and then pass by reference, pass by value, and then you can ask me what how to get rid of those problems. Okay, so that is about it. That's all I had. I hope it was easy to understand session. So I wanted to spend more time on code, so on terminal. So start writing, make a folder, and then start writing code. And also I will I have created a GitHub repository. I'll just show you GitHub repository. Here what I'll do is I'll add the code that I have written so far. So each of these files will be uploaded in this GitHub, and I'll share this. What you can do is you can either check out or download it as a zip, and then you can modify the code, and you can and it will also help you to learn how to use JIT. So JIT is nothing but code management tool. That means different versions can be stored, and comments and all these things can be stored in JIT. So you'll get used to that. We will have a small session on JIT, but that is how we are going to work. So you can upload in your own repository just for your own purpose, and it will be helpful to learn JIT as well. So I'll upload to this repository and send you the link. You can simply download the code and you can work on that. But before just taking the program, try to write the program yourself, and then try to use this the code that is available in JIT. All right. So that is all I had about functions. So in next session we will learn about objects and input output operations, about files and things like that. So we are going in a nice pace. So we'll quickly learn about files and things like that in next class, and then in next session we'll learn about XML, JSON and all these things. This will be a block for our the project that we are going to do, and then we will learn about how to break things and stuff like that. Okay, so exception handling, all these things we will learn. So I want you to start coding now, because those concepts require these concepts. All right, so start writing code, and any questions please ask me. All right, okay. So that's all I had. If you have any questions, please ask me now, or else we can